I got an invite from a motorbike friend to come try out his go-kart at a practice session at VIMC. I've wanted to try out kart racing for the better part of 20 years, so I jumped at the chance. I expected some speed, some extremely sticky tires, and some talented drivers. I was not disappointed. So John's kart has a 125cc two-stroke motor that runs up to 16,000 RPM and puts out about 30 horsepower. Hydraulic brakes with adjustable front-back bias, fancy hubs that allow adjusting the track width at both the front and the back wheels, and of course the sticky tires. The karts are weighted so that the kart and driver exceed some minimum class weight, a bit over 400 pounds I think. John's kart had some 30 pounds of extra weights, and that of course explains why the karts don't use lithium batteries and other weight-saving tricks. There's only one electrical switch, push it forward to start the motor, and pull it back to kill the motor. As said, I expected speed, sticky tires, e.g. hard cornering, and nimble handling. After my time in the pit area, I also expected it to be very loud, but it strangely wasn't. More interesting was the things that I hadn't expected. I had looked the kart over pretty thoroughly, including the controls, but I was on the course and rolling before my brain went, something is different, and I had to think fast to figure out what it was before I did something stupid. I've never left foot braked before, at least not beside playing around. One could easily get addicted to that. No transmission, just one gear and a centrifugal clutch to help you get going from stopped, so nothing other than brake and gas for your feet to do. Speaking of brakes, I did learn very quickly that the kart did not really want to brake in a straight line. It would get squirrely/jittery. You're much better off braking slowly along the racing line, and, no surprise, I was always braking too much and too early. One of the course challenges was that you often could not see the important apexes. Obviously, you could see the next turn, but the apex that I should have been braking for would be around the next corner. Handling, and of course kart handling is completely different than anything I've ever experienced before. There's no suspension beyond the flex in the frame. It seems clear to me that the good drivers are basically four-wheel drifting around the corners, which in a vehicle that small is pretty amazing. It seemed like it would not take much to make one of those spin. I found it a rough ride, and you can see that in the footage. John's kart was well set up without any strong tendency to understeer or oversteer. But what I had forgotten, and remembered after that first session, is that these karts have a solid rear axle, so they probably don't want to spin. They want to go wherever the rear tires point. You can't move much in a kart. The seat is very tight, so unlike a bike, you can't shift your weight forward or back, or get off the seat and hang off the left or right side. You can lean forward and back and possibly try not to lean into a corner. These are probably important and might help you weight or de-weight that inside rear tire depending on what you're trying to do. It's completely obvious from the footage that I wasn't using the tires right. Some of that is probably my lack of recent car experience and an abundance of motorcycle experience. Bikes very much want to go in a straight line, and that is what I did way too much of, trying to straight out S-bends when the kart would have been quite happy to do the squiggle and having earlier apexes that allowed you to set up earlier for whatever was coming, or simply carrying more speed into the next section. I might be imagining it, since the footage doesn't really show it, but I thought I was starting to take better advantage of the tires towards the end. The footage suggests my second lap was in the lower 66 seconds range. I don't know what times the good drivers were getting, but there was talk in an adjacent tent of mid-58s. More than 10% faster, but no surprise when you see some of those passes. It's a pity my GoPro footage of John's run is too far away to identify the karts reliably to estimate his times. Closing thoughts. This experience was a blast, and yes, I'd be happy to go back, but there's no way I could afford to run a kart. John threw out some scary budget numbers, too many digits, but upon thinking about it, he plays hard. He helped his kid compete at the national level. he is not taking any shortcuts or budget options. I know there are cheaper engines to run and probably other places where some savings could be made, but some costs are absolute, e.g. the track rental. And speaking of track rental, that's the same problem I had with autocross. You'd spend a whole day, and if you were running at a good club, with a good club at a good track, you might get 10 minutes of driving time in. The karts should do better time-wise, as there are multiple karts at the track at the same time, but I doubt you'd get more than 30 minutes of driving. With a dirt bike or a dual sport, a day is as long as you want to make it, and you can pick your own schedule. So, while being a partner in a syndicate driving a kart would be attractive, I can't see myself giving up on the off-road bike habit, and it would be difficult to do both at the same time. On the other hand, if the job situation were different, where I had more dollars than time, perhaps karting would win that balance. Anyhow, major, stupendous kudos and thank yous to John for letting me give this a shot. Alright, did I get any of that?